Welcome to Fredericksburg Mission, a podcast talking all things mental health and wellness in the Burgh. Brought to you by...
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to Fredericksburg Mission Podcast. My name is Angela Rivers, and I am here today with foster parent at UMFS of Fredericksburg, Sahra White. Welcome, Sahra.
Thank you.
It is so nice to have you here.
It's good to be here.
You really are a champion parent
Thank
to UMFS and to all the children we serve. So we really appreciate you and all you do for our community.
I'm so glad to be here. I really am. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would love for you to talk about, start this off by talking about the path to becoming a foster parent. You know, how was the process? Did your thoughts change as you began till you were approved? What did that look like for you?
So I have always been a people person. I've always had a passion for working with people. So I knew it was something that I was supposed to be doing, walking in my purpose, working with people. And I initially did 4 years in school to be a juvenile probation officer. So I got my degree in criminal justice. Once I got the degree, I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not what, I didn't feel fulfilled. Yes. So I went on to work with children at a residential facility. And working there, it was with children in the system, children that were considered a little bit more challenging, that, had issues as far as mental health issues and things like that. And I kind of fell in love with the kids there. I was there every day, and when I would leave, I would just feel like it was something more that I should be doing to help these kids. I wanted to bring all of the kids home. I would really go home and say, I wish that I could bring all of these kids home with me so that I could help all of them and love all of them. So eventually I ended up leaving, but I missed it so much, and I felt like I still should be doing something, walking in that. And that's when I looked into, I had never even heard of therapeutic foster care until I worked there. I heard some of the other counselors talking about it. So I decided to look into it one day, and that's when I contacted a few places, but UMFS was the most informative, and they were, giving me more information, offering me to come to an orientation. So that's how the process began. I think with the home study, it went on maybe for about 8 months to a year. The home study can be a little, I don't want to say chaotic, but it's a lot to it. So when I realized how much it was, as far as, you have to go through, I already had 3 biological children. So it was 5 of us in the house, and we all had to do like background checks and doctor's appointments and mental health statements. So I was like, whoa, this is a lot, but I knew it would be worth it. Yeah. So it was, sometimes throughout the process, I'm like, wow, this is a lot. It's kind of time consuming, but I got to know people that work there. And I just felt good about it, so we continued on, and it worked out.
Yeah, well, we're so lucky to have you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you guys, with all the paperwork, some people finish the home study quicker?
Yeah.
How did that look for you? Was it just because there were so many things that you all had to do in comparison to other families? So
yes.
If anyone's listening and they're like, oh, goodness.
Yeah, so it's not a hard process at all. And no one's hard on you and like, do this, do this, do this. It's more of, you have your list, you have everything that you have to do, and we're human and we're adults and we have our outside lives. Yeah. Exactly. So, we both were working full time, and the kids were in sports and things like that. So I had to make time in between those things to make sure that I got this stuff done. So that is what made it for me a little bit more like, okay, this is a lot, but it's really not a lot. It's not. So.
And you have a history too. You're adopted yourself, correct?
Yes. So, at the age of 2 weeks, I was with my father and his wife, and then he passed away when I was 8 years old. So I stayed with his wife's family, who I call my mother, but she ended up passing away also a couple of years later. So her family raised me. So they're my family, but I was not raised by my birth family.
Does that make it more powerful for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
More close to home?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely something that touches my heart. Definitely something that I think about my own experience when I'm helping these kids. I think about things that I thought about when I was going through it, and it definitely plays a huge role in how I am, why I'm the way I am. And, I had siblings that went into care from my birth mother's side that I haven't seen in, it's been over 20 years. So, they went into foster care. I don't know what happened to them. I can't change that, but I can help other people.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing this.
You do such a great job. I'll probably say that 20 times during this podcast.
Okay.
But, we're good.
That's okay.
So what misconceptions did you have about becoming a foster parent?
I thought that I was going to be dealing with a lot of angry children, a lot of angry parents. I was not sure exactly. I knew I wanted to help, but I didn't know how much they would be open to me helping, as far as, coming into a home where you really don't know these people or know their children. And then I know the goal is always reunification. So I knew that there was a good chance I would be dealing with the birth parents, and I wasn't sure how accepting they would be. So that was like the biggest thing in the back of my mind, like how effective can I be in helping, even though I want to help.
Yeah. Often children in care, they've gone through a lot. How do you help the children, unite with your family, feel like they're not alone?
First, you have to get to know them. So when we got our first placement, I kind of let her come in on her own without us bombarding her or asking her a bunch of questions. We were fortunate enough that she wanted to be open. So what we've learned through this process is that when kids hear that we have more children in the home, a lot of them get excited about it. They're like, oh, friends, Yeah. And we're a pretty laid back family. We laugh, we joke a lot, we do a lot. So from our experience, when we've had kids come in, they're more open to it. They're like, oh, I can kind of be myself here. And literally that's what, especially the teenagers that I've had, even with respite and, kids that I've fostered, they're like, I feel like I can be myself here. So when they're able to be themselves, they can kind of just come in and fit in, wherever in the family, because all of them have their own personalities. I'm sure you can imagine. So, yeah.
Yeah, certainly. And how was your first night? Like the very first placement you ever had? What was that experience? Were you nervous?
I was super nervous. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what this child, because, you get your call, they tell you, what the child's like, and then you have to go off that, but then you have to go off what you see once they get to your home.
Yeah.
So when she came, she sat on the couch and just started talking to me. And, I was the nervous one. It was like I was the child at that point because, she wants to be my friend. She wants to talk to me. So I let her lead the conversation and we talked. And that night, my biggest concern was, is she sleeping okay? Is she tossing and turning? I probably went and checked on her like 4 times. And the next morning when she got up, she came down. She was having breakfast with us. We have a daughter that's the same age as her. Mm-hmm. So, they were just talking about school and mutual friends that they know. So it worked out. It did work out. But I was super nervous. I was not sure.
Yeah. And they've become such good friends now.
Oh God. I love her to death. Yeah.
And how many placements have you taken?
Ooh, so does that include respite or just like
whatever you want to share? Yeah.
So I've had a total of
however many you can count.
9. That includes respite, and then 2 that are getting ready to come in, so that will be 11.
Yeah.
And if you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, is this something I could imagine? I would have said no.
Yeah.
No, I'd never imagined that I would have this many children coming in, but it's been a beautiful thing.
And then did you ever think you would adopt some
of
the children?
See, that's the thing. When we first began the process, I said, no adoption. My goal was to just help as many children as I could. I'm like, I want to help, 100 kids throughout my lifetime.
Yeah.
No adopting, because the goal is always reunification. But I've learned that's one of the things that I learned when coming in. I was always thinking that they go back to their parents for the most part. And you don't realize until you start fostering that is not always the reality. With our first placement, They told us she would only be there for 3 months. They said mom was, going to be getting herself together, and by October, everything would be set. So that's what we were looking for. And then that didn't happen. So that's something that we learned, that, nobody, you can prepare as much you want, but we're not in control of it,
No.
at the end of the day. So when we found out she was going to be up for adoption, I was like, well, she's not going anywhere else. So
No, she's not.
she has to, I guess we're adopted now, but it literally went from no way, not because we didn't want to, but because I'm like, that's another misconception that I had. I thought that if you adopted, that you couldn't foster. I thought that was like,
that was the end game.
Exactly. Yeah. And I found out that it wasn't. So, even still not knowing that part, I was like, I'm adopting her. I don't care if I can't, I can't imagine her not being here if she's not going home. Yeah. So.
And then you took multiple placements after that?
Well, Spotsylvania DSS, they just loved our family so much that when we said that we were going to adopt her, the worker pulled me outside and she's like, well, do you think that you could take her brother and sister in, because their foster families are not, ready to adopt right now. So I was like, yeah, I didn't even realize that it came out. And she's like, really? She was like jumping out. She's like, you're so good, and all I was thinking about was her being able to have her brother and sister there for the rest of her life, so that's why yes came out so easily. But again, this is from someone who's like, I'm not adopting. I just want to help as many kids as I can,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And things change.
Exactly, they did.
And I feel like it was kind of meant to be, because they're the same ages
yes,
as your children,
that
right?
was the most funniest part. Like, it was like stairs. So we had, at that time, a 15-year-old boy, a 14-year-old boy, 2 12-year-old girls, and then we had, I believe, 10 and 7.
Yeah, that was totally meant to be.
So, and then it was 4 girls, 2 boys, and the 2 boys were the 14 and 15-year-old, and the 2 girls, and then 2 girls. So our family, like, everyone's like, you just don't see that every day, but
no, you don't.
I love it.
That was
I
meant
love
to
it.
be, for sure.
Yeah. It's been a blessing. It has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then May, so we're highlighting, you're one of our most champion foster parents. Well, obviously, I've said that a few times, but we're honoring our foster parents in the month of May, because it is Foster Parent Appreciation. Yes. What would you like the listeners to know about, the need for foster families, or anything from your experience? If there's anything you could share, what would you tell them?
If it's any way at all that you can provide a safe, secure, and loving home, if you've ever even thought about it, I would say go for it. So many children, there's such a high need for these children to just feel safe, secure, and loved. And I feel that people that probably feel that's something that they could never offer, you'd be surprised how much you could offer that to a child. So I definitely think that if it's ever crossed your mind, if it's just now crossing your mind, give it a shot.
Yeah, and a lot of people think about it for a while.
Yeah.
And then it takes that one thing that makes it click.
Right.
But we need foster families
Absolutely.
desperately now,
Absolutely.
more than ever.
Yes.
Because of so many things that have happened in society. So it would be
Absolutely.
nice to have more. So if anybody is, out there listening, it's always
absolutely
great to have extra families. And then what do you tell your friends and family about your experience? Do you tell them anything specific? Do they ask you questions?
Most of them think I'm crazy and out of my mind. They're like, I don't know how you do it. And then, once we adopted the sibling group, and I said that we were still actively fostering, they're like, are you crazy? You mean to tell me you're bringing? But as far as my close family, they're all so supportive. So most of the time, birthday parties, family events, they just bring the kids in like, they've never not lived there before. So, but when I'm talking about it, I'm telling them the effect that I've had on these kids in such a short period of time. I'm telling them that kids that have came in like this, you know, with their guard completely up, they leave giving me a hug and crying because they don't want to go home. Yeah. And, I'm just sharing with them that even when I'm able to communicate with the parents and, let them know, hey, I'm here for you also, that's rewarding for the kids. The kids love to see that you care about their parents as much as they do. I've learned that also. So I share all of that with them and I let them know, look, this is my passion, this is my purpose. I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and the positive effects that it has on the children, which is most important.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize, like you said, not all the children go back home,
Right.
but some of them do. And so what does that look like? How do you work with the birth family? We talk a lot about, the word bridging the gap between the foster family and the birth family to help the children. How do you support the birth family? Are there certain things you do or things you do for the children to help that process?
So I'm a huge advocate for the children, but I'm also a huge advocate all across the board. So that's for the kids and the parents. And I always say, if you really want to help the children and the parents have the same goal for reunification, why not be an advocate for all involved?
Yeah. So
what I've done is, one placement that I had, the mom was like super involved and they had visits twice a week, so I knew that this was something that the kids were going to go home and I was all for it. So we would communicate through text messages. I would send her pictures of, if it was a snow day and they couldn't have a visit, she's going to get videos and pictures all day, or we're going to do a virtual visit. If they have a great day, I'll text her like, hey, so-and-so had an awesome day, just to let you know, the teacher said this. If they had an off day, we would call mom and I would say, let them know what you think about this behavior. And so she was always a part of it. So her and I formed a bond.
Yeah.
And when it was time for them to go home, she's like, I just want to hug you and take you to dinner because you've been so great to my boys. She's like, thank you so much for, we still text. And when you do that, especially if you're like me and you get attached, it opens the door for you to always know how these kids are doing. So even though they went home, mom, as soon as they got home that night, because you can imagine I was just wanting to make sure everything was okay, but I wanted to give her space. And I got a picture like 8:30 at night of them in their beds. And she's like, we just want you to see, so all of that is so worth it. Me forming that bond and letting her know I'm here for you. We get pictures. We do FaceTime calls. One time she texted me, can you please call the youngest son? And she's like, he misses you so much. You don't see that every day. And if you keep a closed mind and a closed door to the parents, if the children go home, it's going to be the same. And you're just wondering, I wonder how they're doing. So it feels so good to be able to help everyone involved.
Yeah, and a lot of people, that's one of their misconceptions as well, is that once you stop fostering them, once they go back home, you're never going to talk to them again.
It doesn't have to be that way.
And it doesn't have to be that way at all.
And it's the same way with adoption. We adopted the sibling group, but mom was able to become clean and healthy and get herself together. So she comes by for birthdays and holidays and she cooks their favorite meals and brings them over. And she's a really good cook. So, even that, and I get so many thank you texts from my oldest foster daughter. And she's like, thank you so much for letting my mom still be here. So all of it is so worth it when it comes to bridging a gap. And that's as long as everyone wants the gap to be bridged. But I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it helps the kids too as they grow and helps them heal.
Yeah, the more family, the more love. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I bet your birthday parties are a lot of fun.
Yes, they are. So we don't ever need to invite a bunch of people, or my family, they'll joke. They'll say, as long as you bring your kids, I'm not worried about anyone else coming because I know we'll have a full party. Yeah. And we have a good time, even when we had our last placement, like I said, one of the boys, he came in and he was just like, nope, not interested. Yeah. And I have like 100 videos of him dancing and just having the time of his life. And he's like, I don't eat chicken with bones in it, and by the time he left, he's like, can you fry me some chicken before I go? So it's, we just have a lot of fun and we let them open up and they discover things about themselves that they never even noticed before because they're so busy sometimes trying to process the trauma. So when you just let them be themselves and have fun, they forget about that. And then they're like, oh, I do like chicken or I do like it, so it's so cute.
You can fry me some fried chicken any day.
That's one of my specialties.
Is it?
Yeah. Yes. I've seen people dance while they're eating my fried chicken.
Okay, I'm going to need that recipe or you're going to have to cook for me.
Yeah.
Has being a foster parent taught you anything about yourself?
Patience. It's taught me that I've had way more patience than I ever imagined. Like I said, it has its rewards, but we have to be realistic. You're bringing children in that you really don't know much about and they don't know much about you. So some days that can clash and, it can be a mess sometimes. And, some days I go in my room and I'm just like, I can't for the rest of the day. I just need this
That's
space.
called being a mom, too.
Exactly. No, yeah. It has nothing to do with them. It's just life
Yeah.
and kids and work and everything,
Yeah.
you know. So I've learned that, I mean, I can go in my room for about 15 minutes and then I want to go out there and talk to them and make sure they're okay. So I've learned that I have way more patience than I thought that I did. Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Yep, you certainly do.
Yeah.
And similar to that, you know, has being a foster parent taught you anything about the kids that are in care?
It's taught me that they just want to be loved. You know, a lot of people, they have this, you know, idea that kids in foster care, you know, they're this, they're that. I don't know. I'm unsure. They're just like our kids that we have at home. You know, they laugh when you say something funny. They, you know, if you find what they like to do, like one of them, he wanted to make mozzarella sticks. So we did that together. Another one liked to go to the store with just him and I. You know, if you get to learn about them, they will open up to you. They will open up to you. You can form a bond with even the most challenging child. You can form a bond with. So I've learned that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I ask this question on every podcast. At UMFS, we talk a lot about, you know, being an unwavering champion. Our staff, our families, our youth, everybody is an unwavering champion. So how do you view yourself as an unwavering champion?
I would say because I keep saying yes. I have a shirt that says keep saying yes.
Oh, do you?
And I wear it a lot because that's what I do.
Wow.
I can't imagine turning any child down. You know, I used to say, just like the no adoption thing, I would say no teen boys. Now I've had about 4 teen boys come through, whether it's respite or, you know, to stay. And I love my boys, you know, so you keep saying yes. And if it crosses your mind at all, give it a shot.
Thank you. And as we close this podcast, is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know about being a foster parent, about your journey, about the kids, anything in general?
I would say it might be one of the most hardest, challenging things that you've ever done in your life, but it's most certainly the most rewarding thing that you'll ever do.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Sahra. It is
You're
so
welcome.
nice to have you here.
Thank you so much
to see
for
you
having
in
me.
person, you know, to talk with you. Really, thank you. I appreciate
No, thank you
it.
guys. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, this is Angela Rivers with Fredericksburg Mission. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about becoming a foster parent, you can visit www.umfs.org/foster. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you for joining us. I'm Angela Rivers with Fredericksburg Mission. Tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us again next week for our next episode.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.